In the pursuit of a healthier and balanced financial life, many of us face challenges and obstacles that seem insurmountable. This issue also occurred in the life of Andrew, a dedicated salesperson at a clothing store who, like many, struggled to make ends meet at the end of the month. However, a series of transformative encounters and discoveries led him to adopt 5 essential habits to improve his financial life. Follow along and learn from Andrew on his journey as he incorporates these 5 habits into his life and learns to manage his finances wisely. Not just to avoid debt, but also to build a secure financial future and achieve his long-term goals. Andrew's story will serve as an example to you of how it's possible to transform a challenging financial situation into a solid foundation for the future. Andrew arrived at work very concerned. Once again, he had to request an advance on his salary because his income as a salesperson was not sufficient to cover all his expenses. While he was contemplating how to do this, he saw his colleague Mary arrive. She was also a salesperson and had the same salary as Andrew, but Andrew had never heard her complain about money. That day, Andrew mustered up the courage and asked Mary how she managed to live without debt and even take 2 weeks of vacation every year, given that they both had low salaries. She explained that every month, as soon as she received her salary, she identified her recurring expenses, such as rent, utilities, and food, and organized them according to the 50-30-20 rule. 50% of her earnings for essential expenses, 30% for personal spending, and 20% for savings and investments. Andrew was about to inquire about that savings percentage, but Mary clarified that it wasn't easy to save 20% of her income at first. She started with 5%, and gradually, as she adjusted her non-essential spending, increased her savings rate until reaching the 20% goal. This way, Mary could balance her expenses and savings and never relied on credit cards. Andrew was delighted with the idea of not depending on anyone to make it through the month. So the following month, he tried to identify and record his expenses to apply this rule. He realized that, unlike his colleague, he spent more than half of his salary on personal expenses. For instance, he had upgraded his phone to a newer model twice in the last year. When he shared this with Mary, she explained that to keep non-routine expenses in check, she always used the 3-question technique. Do I need this now? Will I be fine if I don't buy it? Will I have enough money left after buying it? This way, Andrew realized that there was no need to upgrade his phone, and spending on it caused him more problems than solutions, especially when money ran out. So let's go over the 5 habits that can help you get out of doubt and improve your financial life. Habit 1. Plan your expenses at the beginning of the month and minimize all non-essential ones. Tired of doing so many calculations, Andrew began to feel hungry, so he went out to buy lunch. The store where he worked was in an upscale area, so the options were always quite expensive. Just for lunch, he spent $12 on a sandwich and a drink. When he arrived in the designated eating area, he saw David, the janitor, having his lunch. He had brought food from home, which, by the way, looked very tasty. Andrew told David that he had spent $12 on a sandwich that was not appetizing at all compared to what he saw in David's lunchbox. Surprised, David explained that to prepare his own food at home, he spent only $5. Moreover, the container he used to carry the food was reusable, which also helped preserve the environment by avoiding daily waste of disposable containers. This way, David spent $7 less per day on food than his colleague and saved even more money by not using disposable containers. Andrew, who had learned a lot from his conversation with Mary, was now very attentive and realized how he could also start saving a lot of money by incorporating these good habits. Habit 2. Question all your recurring expenses and see if you could reduce them in some way. Andrew reflected and realized that, although his lifestyle seemed better than that of his colleague, he always ended up struggling because the money was never enough. Finally, he understood that he had grown accustomed to a lifestyle that cost more than he earned. While it was a challenge to curb his desires and live within his actual means, it was better than drowning in unnecessary debts. So he started seeking information to organize his finances. On his way home from work, he began listening to a finance podcast by Robert Kiyosaki and started following a great piece of advice: eliminating all automatic payment options from his account on websites where he used to shop frequently. This gave him a few extra minutes to rein in his desires and think about how much money he was spending before clicking the buy button. Habit 3. Live within your means, not your desires. One afternoon, a customer entered the store, and Andrew stood nearby to see if they needed any assistance. But the customer already knew what they wanted and began picking out and placing in their cart all the clothes they liked from the store. Andrew was surprised by the quantity of clothing and the total amount his customer was going to spend. The store's card payment system was down that day, so the customer surprised Andrew even more by handing him cash instead of just leaving to buy another day when the system was working. He couldn't understand how the customer had enough money for that amount. The customer explained that when he was a child, his family had a very tough life and often money was not enough. His mother always kept 2 extra bags of rice in a cupboard. So, if the family couldn't get enough money, they had 2 bags of rice to eat. The customer learned from this experience and always kept what he called an emergency fund. This way, he could always weather a temporary crisis or even a job loss and keep things running for a few months until the situation stabilized without resorting to debt. Habit 4. Always have an emergency fund for unexpected expense. Andrew began to put into practice everything he had learned. He stopped buying things he liked but didn't need, started preparing his food at home, and managed his money not to spend more than he earned. This allowed him to start saving to create his emergency fund. Now he not only no longer needs to request advances or loans, but is also planning his next vacation. However, he is doing this without incurring debt. Habit 5. Automate your investments. Andrew realized that in addition to saving a portion of his income, it was important to make his money work for him over time. To do this, he adopted Habit 5, automate your investments. The first thing Andrew did was research different investment options available in the market, such as stocks, mutual funds, bonds, and real estate investments. He sought to understand his long-term financial goals, such as saving for retirement, buying a house, providing a good life for his family, or taking important trips. Based on his financial goals and risk profile, Andrew chose a combination of investments that suited his situation. He opted to invest in a diversified investment fund that offered a good balance of risk and return. Now, instead of spending time monitoring the financial market and making investment decisions constantly, Andrew set up an automation system. He established a portion of his salary to be automatically transferred to his investment account every month, even before receiving his paycheck. This way, he ensured that he was saving and investing consistently without having to think about it. Furthermore, Andrew also set up an automatic reinvestment plan, which meant that the returns from his investments were automatically reinvested, helping his wealth grow even more rapidly over time. With this habit, Andrew was building a more secure financial future and preparing to achieve his long-term goals. He knew that by automating his investments, he was ensuring that his money would work for him, even when he wasn't actively managing his finances. Andrew learned that automating investments not only simplified his financial life, but also helped reduce the temptation to spend his money on impulsive purchases, as the funds were already allocated for the growth of his wealth. With this habit, he was building a solid financial foundation for his future. Did you identify with some of the mistakes Andrew used to make? That's okay. Just like him, you can change and adopt these 5 habits that will help you get out of debt and improve your long-term financial life. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like if you found this type of content helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on new videos. See you in the next video.